Okay, so this assembly is going to be split into two parts. The first part is going to be some notices about things like the head student team application process and various other things. The second part is going to be about men's mental health. I will pop this up later because I'm running late, Danny, apologies. Lovely Danny, for her EPQ, has asked if people can complete this survey. We won't have time now, so don't scan it now, but I promise you I'll come back to it at the end of the assembly so that you have a chance. Danny's doing some research that she needs some survey responses, so please, as many of you as possible, complete this to support her. Right then, as I've said to you, later in this assembly, I'll be talking about men's mental health because it is Movember. I am aware that talking about mental health, and also for some people, some of the gender issues around talking about men's mental health, and that can be triggering. There are lots of possible triggers, whether it be things about suicide awareness or whatever. If you feel this assembly will be triggering for you, then please speak to your mentor discreetly and you'll be allowed to leave for the second part of the assembly after the notices. I have a slide break before the bit about mental health, so please stay for the notices. I don't want anyone missing those. But if you feel you need to leave for the second part of the assembly, then at that point, please head to Miss Armitage for some wellbeing support in the Wellbeing Hub if it applies to you.
Guys,
is everything okay? Okay, so firstly, later today you will receive your first progress check. These will go online at about 9:10, so I'll make sure I finish the assembly by then so that you can open them before you go to your lessons. I just want to quickly explain to you what the different columns mean. I've also explained this to your parents through a meeting a couple of nights ago, and I've sent them the recording, so hopefully you already know, but if anyone hasn't had that information, I just want to quickly explain what it all means to you. This is an example of a progress check from last year, so it's not anyone in your year group, but I'll just talk through what they all mean. So the first column, subject, that should be fairly obvious. And then year 13 target grade, this is your target grade for the end of next year. So you will have 2 years to work towards this target grade. These target grades they're calculated through a government formula based on your GCSE grades, and it looks at people in the whole country and basically says if someone got those GCSE grades, what would they be expected to get in that A level? So we get those grades sent to school as part of a government calculation, and then we will make very minor tweaks if we need to. But that's how we calculate the target grades. The most complicated thing is the difference between a working at grade and a course grade. So a working at grade is the grade you are working at based only on the work you have done so far. So in year 12, you have done 10 weeks work at the moment. These progress checks were actually made last week. So at the time you had done 9 weeks work. That means that your working at grade is the grade that you are achieving based on those 9 weeks. It will include the assessments you've done. You've probably all done 2 assessments. It will include homeworks. It'll include assessed homeworks. If you've started any coursework, it'll include that. It'll include your classwork, home study, all of that sort of thing, like independent study. And the working at grade, your teacher will have taken into account everything you have done so far for those 9 weeks and given you a grade. The course grade is what you would get if you sat the exam today. Now, obviously, you are 10 weeks in. So at this stage, your course grade will be a U or an E. And over the 6 progress checks you get throughout the sixth form, they will slowly creep up. So students in year 13, their course grade is currently 1 or 2 grades below their working at grade, whereas for you, your course grade might be 5 grades below your working at grade because you've just started. So for this progress check, don't worry too much about the course grade, focus more on the working at grade. Your attitude to learning is the last column. For the benefit of people who didn't attend Finham before year 12, our attitude to learning is ranked from 4 to 1, where 4 is the highest. 4s and 1s are both rare. If you get a 4, it means you are going way above and beyond and you're absolutely amazing. Most people will get a 3 or a 2, where 3 means you're doing what you need to do. 2 means you're not doing enough. So you might get a 2 if you're not doing the extra study. If you are doing your homework and no other study, you should expect to get a 2 because you know you're expected to do 5 hours of independent study outside the classroom for each subject. If you're not doing those 5 hours, then I don't want anyone to be annoyed if they've got a 2. A 1 is a serious problem. If you get a 1, it means you are just not doing trying hard in that subject, you're not doing your homework, you're not doing the bare minimum at all. So if you get a 1, you need to be having a conversation with your teacher about what you need to do to improve. Hopefully that's really clear. I will tell you when those go online, so don't start looking yet. They're not on Frog, and you can have a look at them before the assembly ends. So a couple of notices. Tonight's Period 6 talk is about applying to Oxford or Cambridge. It's led by an admissions tutor from Keble College, Oxford. The talk will be remote, but I'm playing it in the study centre from 3:15 p.m. Anyone who's even considering an application to Oxford or Cambridge should attend, or even if you're thinking it's like an outside possibility you might apply, it's really important that you attend, because the process of applying to Oxford or Cambridge is a long one and we need to start getting ahead now. I would recommend coming to that talk if you're interested in applying for something like one of the top Russell Group universities as well, because even though not everything they say will be relevant to you, some of the stuff they say about your application, preparing for your application, doing background reading, collecting appropriate work experience will be very relevant. So do think about attending that. Open evening, sixth form open evening is on Thursday. Lots of you who've told me you are coming to help. Thank you for that. If you're coming to help and I don't know, can you just let me know? We don't need a consent form because you're in the sixth form now, but can you just make sure I know that you're coming so we can make sure we expect you? Right then, the big notice for today is that we are launching the head student team application today. Straight after this assembly, an email will go to your families. They should expect to receive it by lunchtime with a copy of the application form. And you will have until 9 a.m. on Monday, the 4th of December, to submit an application. You'll have to do the application form, that bit's easy, and then you have to do a covering letter, which is no more than 1 page. That's the hard bit. And there's details on the application form about what I want you to include in that covering letter. The interviews will be held during the week beginning the 11th of December, so that will give you a full week to prepare for the interview, because it's quite a complicated process. There's lots of aspects to it. The handover will take place during the week beginning the 18th of December. So you will all, anyone who's successful will meet with the current head student team to hand over their projects. And then your new positions will start after Christmas on Wednesday, the 10th of January. I'm hoping loads of your year will apply, because your year is just amazing and there are so many people who'd be brilliant leaders. So this is the structure of the current head student team. Every year we tweak it slightly depending on the skill sets of the people who apply. So it won't look exactly like this, but it will look similar to this. So at the moment we have 3 head students. We make that decision each year depending on how many suitable candidates there are. We could have 2, we could have 3. I'd be surprised if we had more than 3, but we could have 2 head students, we could have 3, depending on how many people we have that are really suitable. We'll then have a set of deputy head students and a set of assistant head students. They will work in pairs, and each of those pairs will have a really, really specific focus. You can see this year's focuses, and we'll decide those focuses based on both your application forms. You get to express a preference, and what you say in your interview. And just, I think the head student team is awesome. I think it's a really good opportunity. Here are just a few examples of the things the current team have done. So they've run staff training. That's both for sixth form mentors and whole staff, about all sorts of stuff. So some students run training for staff about supporting students during Ramadan. The Pride Alliance have run training for staff about what language is offensive to members of the LGBTQIA+ community that maybe staff wouldn't know about. Some students have done training about supporting neurodivergent students. Students have done training about supporting students with SPLDs, all sorts. And that's really powerful, because we love having a student voice to train the staff, so that staff really understand from a student perspective how the students are feeling. The team have organised loads of events. You can see some examples there, but that's only a few examples. They've organised lots of inclusivity projects. The current one is the mural project focusing on cultural diversity. You can see it in the stairwell. It's part finished, but not completely finished. We've had environmental projects, things like litter picks, planting plants around the site. There's lots of flowers around the site. That's in no small part due to the environment team. Wellbeing support and supporting with main school assemblies, because obviously a big part of the head student team is making sure the main school all know who you are and that you're approachable to students in years 7 to 11 as well as students in the sixth form. Now, I think being on the head student team is awesome, but there is a very big disclaimer. It's a huge job. And it's a big responsibility to take on. Not only is it a big responsibility to yourselves, but it's also a responsibility to the whole school. That head student team is the is the bridge and the mouthpiece between the staff and the students, and it is a big job. And I don't want anyone to apply thinking, oh, I'll just stick in an application, it'll be fine. It is a lot of work, and you've got to think about whether you are dedicated enough to keep your schoolwork maintained, as well as taking on this big role alongside anything else you do, whether that be work experience, a part-time job, whatever it is you do, hobbies. So please do think about whether you actually want to do it and whether you have capacity to commit. And I would say don't take this on if you don't have capacity to commit. That's really important. I think it's awesome, and I think you will all love it if you do it. But if you're somebody that can't cope with lots and lots of extra pressures or whatever, do reflect on whether it's the right thing for you. So if you want to apply, as I said, the application form will be emailed to your parents or carers after this assembly. You need to complete the application form and a covering letter by 9 AM on Monday, the 4th of December. And it's really important, late applications will not be considered. If you email me at 9:01, I'm not considering your application. Now, I know that sounds really, really harsh, but if you're not organised enough to sort this out now, you're just not organised to be on the team, organised enough to be on the team. So please make sure you sort yourself out and be organised. As I said, 9 AM is an absolute cut-off. If that email comes through to me at 9:01, I'm not considering it. That said, if you have a reason you can't meet the deadline, let's say you have a car accident and you're in hospital, of course I will consider it, but you need to communicate with me so I know that there's a good reason. You can't turn up on Monday, the 4th of December at 9:01 and say, I've been in a car accident, when you haven't had that conversation. So please make sure, if there's a genuinely legitimate reason that you cannot meet that deadline, that we've had that conversation in advance. Now, if you have questions, please come available today, but I am available tomorrow. So if you've got any questions, please come and talk to me then. Another opportunity, the Pride Alliance are interested in having some Year 12s join them. So the Pride Alliance are a group of students that look out for the interests of the LGBTQIA+ community, both in the sixth form and the main school. They've done loads of really good things. They maintain the Pride Board. They've done education for staff. They've worked with external agencies such as Coventry and Warwickshire RISE, that's the Eating Disorder and Mental Health Clinic, and have made sure that those people are trained up with appropriate language to use. It's really powerful. If you're interested in joining, then on Wednesday, there's a Pride Alliance meeting after school. I think it's in the study centre, which you're welcome to join. But if you're interested, then I've popped the email address on this poster that you can email and speak to them about attending that meeting. If you're interested in joining and don't want to email this email for whatever reason, then come and see me and I'll pass your name on to the Year 13 Pride Alliance students. Right then, so that's the first part of the assembly, the notices. So now there's a trigger warning. I'm going to move on to talking about men's mental health. So if you're not comfortable in being in the next part of the assembly, please leave now. Go to the Wellbeing Hub to see Miss Armitage. I'll give 1 minute for anyone who needs to leave. Okay, right then, moving on. So November is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, but it's often called Movember. The reason for that is because one of the big awareness activities is men particularly not shaving their facial hair for the whole month of November. Now, at this point, it's worth saying there are some people who are not able to shave or change their facial hair for cultural or religious reasons. It's really important that we're aware that those people are not shunning men's mental health or whatever. So please be mindful when having those conversations. Also, I want to be absolutely clear that it goes without saying everyone's mental health is important, of any gender or any birth sign, sex. I'm not saying that men's mental health is the only thing that's important, but because this is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, I want to focus on that. And also, if you're talking about this, can you be mindful of the fact that not everyone's gender identity is obvious? So Men's Mental Health Awareness Month includes transgender men, it includes gender questioning men, it includes non-binary people who fall on the male side of the spectrum. So please be really, really mindful, and that if you think that somebody's a certain gender based on their appearance or the way they present themselves, please be aware that might not be the case. And I hope the information in this assembly will support everybody, but I do want to focus on men's mental health, and in a minute I'll give you some stats to explain why. Firstly, before we go any further, if you are worried that anybody is in immediate danger of harming themselves, that should say danger, not anger, I'm sorry for that, or others, then call 999 regardless of the situation. If you are worried that a friend of yours or a colleague or something is going to attempt suicide or harm themselves or whatever, or harm someone else, call 999. It doesn't matter in that moment about keeping secrets, being a good friend, whatever. At the end of the day, immediate safety is the most important thing. So just some background and some stats, and the reason that Men's Mental Health Awareness Month has become a thing. So on average, men die 4.5 years earlier than women, and for reasons that are largely preventable, which means that it doesn't have to be that way. One of the things that Movember really focuses on is making sure is awareness of men going to the doctor if they feel unwell, because we know, and there are lots of stats to back this up, that men are less likely to seek medical advice than women if they feel unwell. Suicide is the leading cause of death for men up to the age of 40. And last year, 1 in 5 women, but only 1 in 8 men with a mental health problem sought medical support. Now, obviously, both those stats are pretty sad, because that means that there's 4 in 5 and 7 in 8 men who did not seek medical support. And unfortunately, I don't have stats about non-binary or gender questioning people, but I don't know. I suspect that there's not very many people in those categories who sought support either. But the point is that men are even less likely than women to seek medical support. And evidence suggests that that is the case. And so that's one of the reasons that Movember really wants to raise awareness for men that they can seek that support. So here are some signs that somebody, not just men, but it applies to men, is struggling with their mental health. So not sleeping, eating more or less than usual, forgetting grooming. Forgetting grooming is a big one. Like if you feel like your friend who clearly showers every day is suddenly not showering, not using deodorant, whatever, that's a really clear sign they're struggling. Avoiding social situations, again, it's behaviour changes. So if your friend is always shy and doesn't go out a lot, then that's fine. But if they're bubbly and they like going out or whatever, and then that stops, that is the indication of a problem. Missing social or sports events, going quiet on social media or messaging apps, being more irritable or snapping than usual, and talking of death, dying, or increased hopelessness. The main thing is behaviour changes. Like however much people try and mask, there are often behaviour changes around the fact somebody is struggling. So if you know somebody and you spot their behaviour is changing, then that might mean they are struggling. So there is a huge stigma around mental health, and that is really sad. Now, this applies to everybody, but particularly men. There is a lot of stats and a lot of evidence that men are less likely to talk about mental health because of stigma around, and it's so old now and it's so outdated, but stigma around boys don't cry and men need to man up and all of that sort of stuff. And there are 3 types of pressure that Movember are really working against. So just to say, all the resources I've used today are taken directly from the Movember charity resources. So cultural pressure, with some communities and societies stigmatizing talking about mental health and getting support. Professional pressure. Some workplaces are brilliant with this, but unfortunately, historically, opening up about depression or anxiety in the workplace could cost people their jobs. I don't think that's the case anymore. It's certainly incredibly illegal, but there will be some companies that it's still the case. And personal pressure, because unfortunately some people feel internally that if they have mental health concerns, then there's something wrong with them, when actually it's just an illness like any other. So to reduce stigma around mental health, I would say if there's one thing that every single person can do to make this better, it's reducing stigma about mental health. So firstly, normalise talking about it. If you feel comfortable to share your own experiences, then do. But even if you don't, just talking generically about mental health is really important because it gets the subject out there. Make sure you're informed about mental health issues, causes and treatments available. There's lots of stuff in the mentor programme throughout this year that will help educate you, but you always can use resources like the Movember website to educate yourself. Reach out to people. If you ask for help, then other people are statistically more likely to ask you for help. If you model that behaviour, then your friends, family, associates are more likely to do the same. And also talk about mental health in the same way as any other medical condition. So think about how you would react if somebody told you that they'd broken a bone or were having problems with their heart or their lungs or whatever. Think about it in the same way. I'd love to hear loads of conversations about mental health in the study centre this week. Please, can you all help me with this? I'd like to hear you talking about mental health. Let's get rid of the stigma within Finnan Park Sixth Form. So if you have decided that a friend of yours, if you feel a friend of yours is struggling and you would like to talk to them, This is what you need to do. So firstly, check in with yourself. Are you in a good enough state of mind? Do you have time to listen? Asking somebody how they're doing when you're also on your phone or trying to do your studying or whatever is not going to work. If they're not ready to talk or don't want to talk to you, are you happy with that? And if you ask them how they're doing, are you prepared for the answer to be not good? Okay, are you in a mentally robust enough state to deal with that? I know there have been times when I've just not been in the right place to deal with my friends' worries, and I have postponed that conversation. And it's much better to make sure that you are in the right frame of mind to actually help them rather than the two of you spiraling together. Secondly, set a time. So those conversations can happen anywhere, but it is sensible to have either a face-to-face or video chat and just create the space for that. The other thing I would ask you to do is think carefully about the banter which take place amongst your friendship group. Is that healthy, or is it just mean and nasty? If it could be seen as nasty, it just needs to stop, and that's not a discussion. I hate the word banter because people use it to justify some really, really nasty behaviour. Right then, so Movember have created the ALEC model. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to go through it really quickly. But if you want to have this conversation with somebody about their mental health, this is what to do. So A stands for ask. And there are some suggestions on the screen for what you can say. You haven't seemed yourself lately. Are you feeling okay? It's just that you haven't been replying to me lately, and that's not like you. So ask if somebody's okay, and don't be afraid to ask twice. If you get the answer, I'm fine. Secondly, L, so listen. It's really important that you properly listen. It's really common when someone's talking about how they're feeling for people to jump in, butt in, try and give solutions. That's not helpful. Listen properly. Let them say everything they want to say, and then make sure they know you're not judging. You don't need to diagnose problems. Unless you are a medical professional, you're not a medical professional. Just listen. And there are questions you can ask to show that you are giving them your attention, such as, that can't be easy. How long have you felt this way? E and C. So E is encourage action. Depending on how severe somebody's mental health issues are, there are simple steps. Is this person getting sleep? Are they exercising, eating well? Is there something that has helped in the past? Or if it's maybe more severe, have they seen a doctor or a counsellor? Do they need to seek some medical support? And C, check in. Suggest another catch up, call or meet up to make sure that person knows you care and you're going to check back in with them. Also, the number one way of reducing suicide is if somebody knows that there's a check-in scheduled, they are much less likely to self-harm or suicide because they've got that meetup in their mind. And there's loads and loads of stats around that. Now, on the board, I have put loads and loads of helplines. Now, let's reduce stigma. Whether you need these helplines or not, get your phone out, take a photo. If everybody does this, then it reduces stigma for the people who might need them taking those photos. So every single one of you, get your phones out and take a photo of the board right now. Even if you don't need them, you are doing this to reduce the stigma to other people. Okay, I'm going to give you 20 seconds just to do that. If you've got that photo, send it on to everyone. Everybody should have these saved in their phone somewhere. Right then, if you haven't had time to take a photo, your mentor has got these. So finally, I'm just going to go back to the first slide so you can all fill in Danny's survey. It'll only take you 30 seconds. You can also open up your progress check. Mr. Shepherd has put Danny's survey on the notices for the week. So if you don't have a chance to fill it in now, you can do it later in the week. Everyone fill in Danny's survey, please. Have a look at your progress check. I'm going to finish now because the bell goes in 1 minute, but I'll leave this on the screen. Have a lovely day and let me hear you talking all about mental health and ending that stigma. Have a great day.